there's a very real chance that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders go 1-2.
Yeah.
And then
just
you're like,
imagine if you have no Russell Wilson, no Jameis, you got Tommy DeVito, those two rookie quarterbacks, then you really, USOL then.
Yes. Okay, another veteran signing.
Lawrence, what does SOL, for the kids at home watching, what does SOL stand for?
Sheets out of luck. That's what it stands for.
Well, a man who is in luck. Man who's in luck is Stephon Diggs, who signed it.
Damien, look that up. I don't think Lawrence is correct in terms of what that means.
Sheets out of luck.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry.
Sheets out of luck. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Jay Croucher, Lawrence Jackson, Connor Rogers is back. Matthew Berry is here. I'm playing hurt. Took a flesh wound.
Just
a flesh wound.
It's just a flesh wound. It's very upsetting. By the way, I talked to the kids on the internet, and you're wrong. That is not what it means. That is not what.
They said I was wrong.
They said you were wrong.
Can't be right all the time.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Richardson can't be right all the time.
No superhero Band-Aid?
No, I thought, yeah, for my boo-boo. Close.
Yeah.
Not about
Well,
it. Believe me, you have a choice. It could either be this bandage or it could be gushing blood all over you. So you're welcome. Yeah, exactly.
You know what
I'm doing? I am playing hurt. Unlike my entire fantasy NBA team, which is basically on the bench. That's right. No, exactly. This is what I mean. When you're hurt. You start playing. Oh no. But my guys decided to take the week off. Yeah. Here's a tweet from backup producer Pete, who once again is ignoring his 3 children, ignoring his job. To just do Photoshop because all he has to live for is beating me in fantasy basketball, which is actually happening. Pete and I are in the finals.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow. Wow.
All right, so producer Pete has tweeted out, should at Matthew Berry Team trade a finger for a comeback win over me in the Fantasy Basketball Championship? That Twitter poll's 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. And Nikola Jokic, who drinks free, who is on Matthew's bench. Matthew's unimpressed with a 61-point triple-double.
I needed him,
just nothing. That's nothing.
Yes.
That is 2 games worth, Matthew. You realize that.
I understand, but he's carried my team the entire year.
I want more.
I need more. Carry me the whole way through, brother. I don't need you taking off. And here's the other thing that drove me crazy is that he was ruled out. And it's a West Coast game. So by the time he's ruled out, I can't do anything about it. It's not about setting alarms. I knew before the game started, but because of the platform we play on, you're not allowed to make a change. The rosters are locked. You can't immediately throw them into IR and go grab somebody to put into a spot because other games have started in the association already.
Breaking it down.
Wow.
All I'm saying here, very important, we're going to get to football in 1 second, but this is very important here, is that I won our football league this year. I won our football league the year before. And so it's very upsetting for me to realize that I am the Kansas City Chiefs, that I had a shot at a 3-peat, and unless I make a miraculous comeback over the next 4 days, I'm down 200 points to Pete.
You're getting blown out.
Exactly. I am literally the Chiefs.
Yes.
I am the Chiefs. I am Patrick Mahomes.
Now Josh Sweat's coming for you.
Yeah, exactly right. It's very upsetting.
All right, well, we're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes.
But someone, Pete, now that you're up so big, maybe now you could spend some time with your children. Yeah, just anyway, backup producer Pete. That's all I'm saying.
Stick to Photoshop, Pete. The children will be there for a long, long time. We're going to talk about your quarterback rankings today, Matthew.
Yes, sir.
Connor's mock draft later in the show. We'll hit some headlines from the NFL owners' meetings. But let's start off with those quarterback ranks.
Yes,
Matthew.
sir. Available on Rotoworld.com for free. I'm a company man.
Yep. You mentioned Patrick Mahomes. He comes in at number 7. Ahead of him, though, Josh Allen is number 1. Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield above Patrick Mahomes, which would have been stunning 2 years ago. Kyler Murray is number 8, Jared Goff number 9, and then Brock Purdy, who's probably about to get paid a big contract. He is number 10. Let's start off talking about these top guys, Matthew. How likely are you to target one of the top 3 and 4, and do you feel like there is a drop-off after Jalen Hurts with, to be clear, some potential uncertainty around his value based on a rule change that might be coming?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So I definitely would like to, it all depends on price, all depends on sort of where you can get them. If you're playing best ball, also depends on stacking potential. But to me, there is definitely a drop-off after the next 4. I think Burrow is clearly 5th, but and we'll talk about Burrow in a second. But once you get past Burrow, I feel like they're all sort of the same.
Right.
I mean, like, you know, like I have Caleb Williams in the next, like if Caleb Williams winds up as 8 next year, is anyone going to be shocked? Like it just feels like a sameness from like sort of 6 to 15. As I was doing the rankings, they're all sort of right there as well. So I definitely want, I mean, like, you know, I have Justin Herbert at 14. Does anyone out there feel like, oh yeah, you know what? Jared Goff is absolutely going to have a much better year than Justin Herbert. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're just all sort of the same. So that's a way of saying that, like, in an ideal world, again, you don't want to get crazy, but yes, I will definitely have some exposure to those guys in the top 4 because I do think they're definitely a cut above because of both their ability to earn points with their arms and their legs and the consistency of how they play and the offenses that they're in.
Yep. Lawrence, last year, C.J. Stroud came into the season the 5th favorite for MVP, top 10 consensus fantasy quarterback, and had a terrible statistical year. Is there one of the guys in the top 10 that you would be most worried about having that type of season?
Most worried about having that type of season? Maybe Kyler Murray, because he's the one on this list who, well, Brock Purdy did too. He's the one who finished outside of the top 10. But Kyler Murray barely though. You get a second year with Marvin Harrison. He's going to get a little bit better. So if it was anybody in this, it's because Baker Mayfield, he's going to throw the ball. That's how he's going to get his points. Joe Burrow, you got a lot of volume there. Jared Goff, even though he lost Ben Johnson, you still have all of the pieces and personnel in place, including Jamison Williams, who they picked up his 5th-year option. So not so much.
Yep.
Purdy would be it for me. And I know it's easy because he's 10th, right? But there's just a lot of questions with this team. Starting on the offensive line, Brandon Ayuk coming off a serious season-ending injury. Obviously, they move on from Debo, which is fine, and they have some talent behind him in Pearsall and Jennings. But I look at Purdy at 10. I mean, there's a world where Dak Prescott at 17 has a better season than him statistically.
Definitely.
It goes kind of back to Matthew's original point that there's this wide bucket there where it's like, hey, Purdy at 10 and all the way to Dak at 17, you could see anybody jumping anybody.
I sort of feel like if you don't get one of those top 5, and again, I think Burrow is in a second tier after those top 4 because he doesn't run the way that the first 4 do. But I feel like once you're past Burrow, like, sort of just want to wait.
Right.
Like, I mean, one of the things you'll hear me say in August is like, if I don't get one of the first quarterbacks, if I'm not one of the first guys in my league to get a quarterback, I want to be one of the last. Because I do think there's just from 6 to 17, there's just a sameness there that I feel like there'll be better value in the draft, and whoever you get, you get.
I think at that point, from that 6 to 17 range, it's a matter of which one of these guys could be most consistent in having 20-point fantasy games, because all these guys are capable of doing it. We know those top 4 do it the most, but those other guys, it's like, who could do this more often?
Yeah, and again, if you're playing best ball right now, just as you're going through your draft and just stacking possibilities as well, right? I mean, so to your point about Dak Prescott, I'm not going into a best ball draft targeting Dak Prescott, but if CeeDee Lamb falls to me, then okay, suddenly he becomes interesting, right? As a third quarterback.
Yep. Not saying it's wrong, but it is stunning just seeing Baker Mayfield at number 6, given that he played for the Carolina Panthers 2 years ago and very briefly the LA Rams. Are you worried at all, Matthew, about the departure of Liam Cohen tanking Mayfield's value, even though the personnel is largely the same?
No, I'm not. Listen, since the start of last season, no player in the NFL has more passing touchdowns than Baker Mayfield. And yes, Liam Cohen moves on, but that was the argument 2 years ago when Dave Canales moved on. You know, and so, you know, their new offensive coordinator was their passing game coordinator last year. It's going to be the exact same offense. It's all the same personnel. The fact that they brought Godwin back, the fact that last year that they brought Godwin back, that Evans is going to be back, it's a pretty good offensive line. And to me, actually, I feel better about Baker going into this year than I did last year. And he was coming off an awesome year last year because we've seen the emergence of Jalen McMillan. We've seen Cade Otton have moments like, I feel better about his weapons now than I did a year ago. And this is even before we get into the draft. You add in the emergence of Bucky Irving that gives them a real threat in the backfield. Like, Rachaad White is nice, but I think Bucky Irving is special, right? And he's a true 3-down back as well. So I just feel better overall about the Buccaneers offense and Baker at the center of it. in his third year now in that system, it's going to be the same system even though Liam Cohen's in Jacksonville.
He got better after Dave Canales left.
Yeah.
So he had the good year with Canales, got better. So the question for me would be like, what's Liam Cohen going to be without Baker Mayfield? Like that seems to be the real question because Baker Mayfield is stacking and getting better statistically every year. Like I said earlier, he's going to get the volume, 4,500 passing yards, and he's one of 13 guys in NFL history to throw for 40 touchdowns in the season.
Yep, Connor, highest profile OC departure, certainly Ben Johnson leaving Jared Goff. Ben Johnson largely seen as revitalizing Goff's career after the Rams traded him for Stafford. How much do you downgrade Goff without Ben Johnson?
Not too much, and Lawrence hinted at this. It's the same offense. This line is still good. I know they've had some pieces go in and out the door, but Amon-Ra is still there. Jamison Williams, it's the best version of him. Obviously, they can throw to the running back, specifically Gibbs. They throw to their tight ends. So yes, Ben Johnson is a great play caller, especially those trick plays and the unique plays they run and calling the flow of the game. But
except in the NFC playoff game, Jamison Williams, thanks for that pass, baby.
Yeah,
Hail the Commanders, hail victory.
Sometimes it's dangerous to get that cue, but I don't downgrade Goff that much. I just don't prioritize him because once again, it's the whole Purdy argument again. I don't need to have Goff earlier when behind him is Purdy, Justin Fields, who runs a lot. Once again, Dak, Bo Nix. I feel like it's a similar bucket of guy that I just, like, he's in a tier that isn't valuable to me, is the argument. But I don't see a drop-off for him.
Flip side, Lawrence, Ben Johnson in Chicago now with Caleb Williams. How much do you upgrade Caleb with getting one of the best offensive minds?
You got to upgrade him a little bit. And you talked about, are you surprised? Would we be surprised if Caleb Williams was a top 8 quarterback? I wouldn't be surprised if he was a top 5 quarterback. And this is why. Again, the rookie season was not bad. It's just that Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix existed. Both went to the playoffs. Jaden Daniels was extremely exceptional when he played. But again, Caleb Williams, a guy who's 11 yards shy rushing for 500 yards. That is valuable. He's a top 8 quarterback runner in the league. So you add that, you add the offensive line. They're probably going to draft the running back to take the load off him in the draft there. So I think you got to see him as around being a top 10 to 12 fantasy quarterback.
Caleb Williams wasn't terrible last year. That's the thing of it. The issue that Caleb Williams had is that he was drafted first overall, and that Jaden Daniels went nuclear. But honestly, like, given everything else that he was dealing with in Chicago, like, Caleb Williams was fine. And I honestly think that if there wasn't that meltdown on Thanksgiving, if Jaden Daniels doesn't have a Hail Mary, against them in week 6 or 7 that was, like, I think the narrative on Caleb Williams is probably different, right? Or if Jaden Daniels didn't have the kind of year, there were flaws in Caleb Williams' game last year, but there were also flashes where you went like, that's why that guy was drafted number 1 overall. And so, to your point, giving him more time and protection, I think Adunze will emerge as well. I don't think they're done adding to that wide receiver room. We'll see what happens in the draft or sort of the rest of free agency. Who knows if Keenan Allen ends up coming back or not. But I do think Caleb Williams is pretty interesting next year once you get into the second tier.
Ironically, though, the one reason why I'm a little glass half empty on him in fantasy is, and this is better for him as a pro, what if they draft Ashton Jeanty at 10? And I think this defense is going to be really good under Dennis Allen.
Yeah.
He won't be in those scripts where it's like, hey, Caleb, drop back 25 times this half. So he will be a better pro. I don't know if he'll be asked to be a better fantasy quarterback. That remains to be seen.
Which is 100% fair, and I think, but
I could see those rushing numbers for Caleb Williams going like that. Almost 500 could be like 350.
Right.
And that you lose, like, that's 15 yards a game right there. So
yeah, and I think if they do end up drafting Jeanty, I think I'll move him down a little bit. But I put him where I put him just because I do think there's an upside to Caleb Williams that isn't there with some of these guys. Some of these guys, it's like there's a limit to the ceiling. But to your point, like, Caleb Williams, there's just such a wide range of outcomes. To your point, like, if we're a year from now, we're talking about Caleb Williams, top 5 fantasy quarterback, I'm not going to be shocked. No. But also, if if we're a year from now we're talking about, well, Caleb was QB 17 last year. Also wouldn't be shocked as well on a points per game basis.
And he could have still played like good football.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's just not going to be got to be a thing. Very quickly on Goff as well, I just want to point out. So their offense coordinator is John Morton, who was on that staff in 2022. So again, it is going to be a lot of the same offense. Yeah. He's still going to have a very good offensive line.
Yep. With Caleb, we've had in recent years some MVP winners come out of nowhere. Patrick Mahomes in effectively his rookie season was 50-1 to win MVP. Lamar Jackson, the year that he won in his second year, he was 50-1. Caleb Williams is the guy, I think, in that 50-1 range, who I don't think Caleb Williams is going to win MVP. But if you talk about someone who has upside, and that lends itself to fantasy as well, just in terms of the huge amount of variance with Caleb, he would be the guy for me. Connor, I think a guy with less variance is Bo Nix, who had an excellent rookie year, but a lot of it was with short stuff, with dink and dunk, and also with using his legs. And he's number 12 in Matthew's rankings, one spot behind Caleb Williams. With Bo, what type of quarterback do you think he's going to look like this year? Do you think it's going to be the same, a lot of short stuff, or do you think that he has the scope to expand his game down the field?
It's going to be interesting if he can replicate, it's the same combo, the rushing. That's the biggest. Like, do they need him to replicate that rushing? This team, I think they have running back in play in the first round, if not the first round. After that, they really want a special running back in this offense, and that makes life a little easier down in the red zone for Bo Nix and in short yardage situations. But on the flip side, I think they got Evan Ingram, and I think they'll draft another pass catcher where he'll have more weapons to work with. So I think more of the same for Bo Nix, which was really damn good as a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, again, like it took him a little while, but like over his final 10 games, week 8 on, he was the 6th best quarterback in fantasy on a points per game basis. Like, this is a crazy stat. There were 4 quarterbacks last year that had at least 3,500 passing yards and at least 400 rushing yards. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, and Bo freaking Nix. And so, to your point, like maybe the distribution, if they draft like Hampton, if they draft like a special running back, so maybe the distribution of his fantasy points is slightly different. Maybe the passing goes up a little bit more and the rushing comes down.
That's what I could see.
Second year in the system, to your point, they added Evan Ingram, and it's not like the rushing is going to go away. You know what I mean? Like, he's too good as a runner for Sean Payton to be like, yeah, I just need you to, sit back in that pocket. Like, it's still going to be a part of the offense as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think I have Bo Nix at 12, but again, he's a guy that you could see easily, being a QB1 next year.
He was a top 10 quarterback in fantasy points per game last season, but he finished ahead of guys like Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, Caleb Williams. Those would all be guys right there that I probably would be willing to take over Bo Nix this year, who were not in the top 10 last year. We've seen Fields be a top 5 quarterback in fantasy. Now that he's got the starting spot. So it's just like a guy like a Mahomes, like he could end up like Bo Nix was ahead of him last year. I don't see the same this year.
Yep.
I just feel like with Bo Nix, he's going to be one of those guys who's going to be underrated in fantasy because he's not a flashy player. He plays in Denver, West Coast, right? And just like he wasn't drafted with a lot of fanfare, and so he's still not Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, and then Cam Ward's going to get buzz this year as well. And I just feel like people just never gave Bo Nix any credit last year, and just all he did every week was put up fantasy points.
He gives you a floor at the position, which is valuable.
Yeah, he's deeply unsexy. There's some Mac Jones aspects to Bo Nix.
But with running.
But with
right,
running.
yeah.
The thing is with the running, though, is that at midseason last year, Bo Nix was like lapping the league in scrambles without pressure. Like, it just seems like he was taking off in the pocket to kind of the detriment of his game, but in a way that was beneficial for fantasy. And then I suspect what's going to happen is he's going to provide less value with his legs, but more value with his arm.
Yep.
Let's jump to Jordan Lawrence, who is one of the most, I think, enigmatic quarterbacks. So I can't really get a handle on what he is in terms of a player or his statistical production. Think back to the playoffs a couple of years ago after he lit up the Cowboys that first half against the Niners. It's like, is this guy like the 5th best quarterback in football? Then a strange year last year, dealt with some injuries. What do you think his ceiling is?
Yeah, well, that year he was quarterback 6 in fantasy points per game. In 2024, it don't seem like it, but he was quarterback 13. But it was like he had a couple of big games here and there. He only had 2 weeks as a top 3 quarterback in fantasy. So it's like you didn't get a lot of great games and a lot of consistency. You got some blow-up games here and there. And then you look at the fact that the Packers were a top 5 team in running attempts. Now, you had also the Buccaneers in there and the Lions, who they had 2 quarterbacks who don't who don't run the ball, but they're extremely efficient in the passing game, which the Packers weren't last year. The thing with the Packers is you look for where the receivers at. I just talked about the Bucs. You got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
You got the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, James Williams. So with the Packers, I would feel a lot better about this if we just knew, like, hey, who's that guy?
The guy,
receiver,
exactly.
You know? So that would be the difference for me.
I fully agree. That's the problem of why I'm not high on Jordan Love this year is that they don't have an alpha wide receiver to funnel the pass game through, and I don't think they want to. I think they want to run the football, and they like the manufactured stuff to Jaden Reed, and obviously, you know, they've dealt with injury at the position as well. And this is not a draft where you sit there and go, I know they're going to come away with the number 1 wide receiver in this draft. It's not that kind of draft class.
And Matt LaFleur has always wanted to run. Like 2 years ago when Jordan Love had like the really good fantasy season, he was running more, and they got very lucky in terms of, you know, red zone passing touchdowns as well. But like last year, they were 31st in pass rate, right? Love had under 30 pass attempts in 8 of his final 10 games. He finished higher than QB 15 only 2 times during that stretch. And oh, by the way, it worked.
Right,
like
that's the thing.
The
Right,
Packers,
they're in the playoffs.
honestly, they got in the playoffs. And honestly, I think if a couple of calls go their way against the Eagles, they might have won that game. Like, they were right in it. They got screwed by the refs. I still don't understand the kickoff return fumble call. That one made no sense because the exact same call happened against the Commanders where in the Packers, you know, the Packers came out with a ball, and they're like, no, the Eagles recovered it on the ground.
Yeah,
and then Austin Eckler fumbles it, and you know, a commander comes out with the ball, and they're like, no.
Everyone's talking about, by
it
the
was
way,
very inconsistent.
Quick aside, everyone's talking about the Eagles as some absolute juggernaut. Matthew Stafford was on like the 16-yard line, had a chance to beat them, and I think the Rams were favored in that game for a brief time. Anyway, the Eagles, they are a juggernaut of sorts, but they could have very easily lost.
They could have easily lost, but my point being is that I don't think as the Packers, as Matt LaFleur and his staff look back on last season, the Packers, I don't think they're sitting there going like, man, we got to fix this. Like, it worked. They rode Josh Jacobs down the stretch. They played good football. They played very good defense. They ran the ball well. They took their shots with Jordan Love, and it worked. Like, you know what I mean? And like, you know, so they lost a road game to the Eagles, but I don't think, you know, they have anything to hang their heads about that particular game. So nothing that happened last year makes me think like, oh, this is a team that's suddenly going to change its offensive philosophy, because LaFleur has always wanted to be very balanced on offense and maybe even lean a little bit more run heavy. And so I just don't see Jordan Love. I think we're much more likely to get last year's version of Jordan Love than 2 years ago, fantasy-wise.
At cost, I'd rather have Michael Penix.
Yeah.
If I was going 100%. For somebody like a 3-point shooter, a big play hunter. At cost, which
the thing is, Jordan Love is a big play hunter too, but he don't got no big play getter like a Drake London.
Exactly.
Throw the ball to. You know,
Yep. Okay, another enigmatic quarterback, Connor, is Trevor Lawrence, who has perhaps the best situation of his career now with an offensive mind like Liam Cohen. Do you think that generational prospect that he was drafted at is still in there?
It is. I don't think he'll ever reach that status. Like, do I expect to be this time next year having him in the combo alongside Joe Burrow? I just don't. But if you need reasons for optimism for Trevor Lawrence this year, what more do you need? You have Liam Cohen, who it feels like he knows what he's doing calling plays. Brian Thomas Jr., who everybody at this desk is extremely high on as the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. They spent a ton of money on the offensive line in the offseason. Like, what more does Trevor Lawrence need? So it's all there for the upside, but you also do need to be careful of doing this is the year. And this is somebody that the injuries have just piled up on him over the years. He's got to stay healthy back there.
Yeah, Brenton Strange. Don't forget Brenton Strange, baby.
Parker Washington.
Yeah.
We're all here and ready to go.
We're excited.
Gabe Davis is down there somewhere.
Yes, exactly. No, but right. I mean, it's in there somewhere. Like last season under Cohen, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were top 3 in passing yards and passing touchdowns. And one of the reasons he was hired, probably the main reason he was hired, was fix Trevor Lawrence. Yes. Get Trevor Lawrence back. And it's not like Trevor Lawrence has been a bust. What's been, you know, you think about Trevor Lawrence is like he gets drafted by Urban Meyer, and it's a complete disaster. Okay, and Doug Peterson comes in, and then we see some flashes. And then there's a lot of injuries. There's some questionable front office moves as well.
Right.
And, you know, they don't surround him necessarily with the best talent. He also deals with some injuries. And so Trevor Lawrence has been fine, but this is somebody that has gotten the Jaguars to playoff, you know, to a playoff game. Like has had some big wins. You think about that comeback win against the Chargers. That's like one of the great NFL games of the last 4 years. And so I mean, I'm holding out hope. I would be more optimistic about Trevor Lawrence than not. Having said that, like, I do think he's kind of an interesting flyer. You know, I mean, again, like, I'm pretty far down here, right? But like, it's not outside the realm of possibility that he could suddenly be. He could be this year's Baker Mayfield. He could be this year's Sam Darnold, right? I mean, because he's got that skill set and there's enough talent around him. That offensive system as well. And it's not like the defense is going to be amazing.
I don't know, man. Baker Mayfield, I just feel like people always say this stuff about players, but I just feel like Baker Mayfield got that dog in him. So I don't know if what Liam Cohen did with Baker is like just automatically transferable to, you know,
not
what
automatically.
I'm saying? Like, I just think Baker is like the resilience in his career and what he had to go through to get to this point. I think there's some different, like, makeup between the two guys.
I think that's completely fair. My counter to that would be 1,000%. I mean, Baker's kind of a badass, and at least so far, Trevor has not been to that level. But there are a lot of similarities in that both guys drafted number 1 overall. Both guys struggled early in their career. Both guys showed flashes earlier in their career, but also were considered like, I don't know. And so then, you know, Baker has the kind of year he has under Canales and sort of then establishes himself, oh, that wasn't a fluke under Liam Cohen. And so I think there's a chance with Trevor Lawrence. I think there's also a chance that he is what he is, and that's why you have him in this range. I'm at QB 18, but I'm just saying, like, the question is there potential optimism for Trevor Lawrence? And I think the answer is yes.
His best season in 2022, he was quarterback 12 in fantasy. You have him at 18, so if he could get to that point, like 25 touchdowns, 8 picks like he had that year, then yeah.
All right, let's jump to 21 through 30, starting off with Connor's man, Michael Penix Jr., Tua Tagovailoa at 22, J.J. McCarthy expected to be the starter, Cam Ward, likely the starter for the Tennessee Titans, Matthew Stafford, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, now in Seattle, Anthony Richardson, who has a huge range of outcomes, Derek Carr, and then Shedeur Sanders at 30. Matthew, who in this range do you think has the best chance of being this year's Sam Darnold? And you can choose Sam Darnold if you want.
No, I appreciate that. And I'll say it's Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, again, like, he's somebody, he needs to stay healthy. Tyreek Hill needs to get back to being Tyreek Hill. But when you think about Tyreek and Jonnu Smith and Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane out of the backfield, if Tua's healthy the entire year, he's got top 10 upside. You know what I mean? And so, to me, I think it's Tua just about, it all comes down to the health of him and his skill position players. One quick thing I just want to mention when you're like, wow, Anthony Richardson 28, that's because I did these rankings as if I'm drafting today. Obviously, if they came out and said Anthony Richardson is a starter, is going to start every game, he's much higher. But it's just because there's a chance he misses some games. There's a chance Daniel Jones wins this job. Like, it's just the uncertainty of his role that has him that far down at this stage of the rankings.
Okay, let's jump to the Rotoworld Player news, where we heard from Kellen Moore talking about the role that Alvin Kamara will have.
Alvin? Yeah, premier player in our league. Obviously, you're really excited to have him on your side, Paul, and on the other side. He's just a big play waiting to happen. Great person, great player, great teammate. He'll be a big part of our offense.
He's obviously getting older at that position. You worry about touches for him and all, or how do you sort of work out?
All running backs, as you go through the season, there's awareness. It's a longevity game. The season's very long. You understand every player is going to be different. He's been able to vary the ball a decent amount over the last couple of years, and we'll just kind of see as we go through the season.
We kind of forget now because of how the Saints season tailed off, but Alvin Kamara was an absolute monster to start last year. He looked as good as ever. Do you expect that his role will be a little bit reduced as he gets older now?
Nah, because who's there to threaten him at this point? Kendre Miller got a little run last year, but not enough to where you can say, oh, he's finally taking over. Alvin Kamara, top 5 fantasy running back in points per game last year, so no. I'll take those 950 rushing yards that he had last season. He's not a guy who runs for 1,300. He'll pick that up in the receiving game and go get you 70 to 80 catches.
Yeah, they just don't have a lot, and Kellen Moore will throw to his running back, and so, yeah, I mean, I think the jury's still out as to whether or not Kendre Miller's any good. Like, right. I mean, you forget about, like, who else do they have? I assume they're going to draft somebody. They have to draft somebody this year. But I do think for at least one more year, Alvin Kamara is going to be the focal point of that Saints offense that is likely going to be trailing and dumping off to the running back.
There's just so many touches there for him, and it's not going to be all replaced in the draft. Even if they took a wide receiver early and they add a running back, which I think they will. It's Alvin Kamara's show.
Yep. Okay, also at the owners' meetings, we heard from Aaron Glenn, new Jets head coach, talking about Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson.
Well, I think mentally he's in a good place. But I would say that we have 3 running backs on this team that we're going to utilize as much as possible. They're all big men. They can run. They're violent. They're physical. So I think once we get a chance to get the players in and see exactly like how they operate, I think every player is going to be happy with the way that we go about this offense. And I think he's going to be one of them. When it comes to Garrett, we all know what Garrett can do. Garrett is a dynamic player. So I'm looking forward to being able to get him the ball as much as possible.
Connor, I remember when Breece Hall, final game against the Patriots 2 years ago, had 37 carries.
In the snow.
Yeah, in the snow.
With nothing on the line.
I still don't understand why that happened, but do you think that he will return at some point to being a workhorse back that he was expected to be coming into this year?
I don't know. He hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he's played, but he has not been Breece Hall. And I thought the contrast and answers there, and I know we take these all with a grain of salt, was very clear. This organization is wildly high on Garrett Wilson. They want to pay Garrett Wilson a lot of money. They want to feed the entire passing game through Garrett Wilson. I don't think they feel that way about Breece Hall. They like Breece Hall. They know when he's healthy, he's an explosive player. I thought him going out of his way to bring up Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis wasn't BS. I think it's real that, like the Lions did to an extent, they want to feed their running backs and they want to get the best version of Breece. But I think there's been more questions in that organization about Breece recently, while there's no questions about Garrett, and I think that says a lot going into the season.
Do you have a sense of the health of Breece's knees?
And that's the thing. He didn't participate in OTAs last year. It was kind of flip a coin how explosive he was week to week. Steeler game, he looked great, and then other games, it's like, what? That's not Breece Hall. So this happens with running backs. They get banged up, and I think that the days of expecting Breece to be this 25-touch guy could theoretically be behind us.
Last year, 16.6 touches per game. That was fewer than Rico Dowdle or Kareem Hunt. Just to give you a comparison, as much as brilliant as Breece Hall has been at various points in his NFL career, he has yet to have a season with over 1,000 yards rushing. He has yet to have a season with more than 5 rushing touchdowns. And so it's a lot of like, can he be involved in the passing game with him? Then you think about like Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis and just some of those other guys. And so like, are we looking at Sonic and Knuckles and whoever the third lame character of that? Tails. Is it Tails?
Breece Hall might be Tails.
Yeah.
Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails. Are we looking
Knuckles.
at that? Are we looking at some version of that here in New York? Because, I mean, I think you're right. Like I read Aaron Glenn's answer between the lines the same way you do.
I believe everything I believe everything Aaron Glenn is saying. Let's remember too, this is a defensive coach right here. Remember, once upon a time, the Jets went to back-to-back AFC Championship games with a defensive coach in Rex Ryan, a quarterback that threw more interceptions than touchdowns, and they still made it that far on the run game and defense. So now while he's saying we got 3 good running backs, and he's saying he wants to use Garrett Wilson, that just goes to show you, like, they just want to, and he's also said we want to let Justin Fields play quarterback. We want to let him do what he does, but we want him to play quarterback. All of this spells like not good for Breece Hall in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Justin Fields thing, that's the one that can go either way, right? Yeah, you can make the argument like, well, he's going to take some carries away. They're going to do some bootlegs around the goal line. There's going to be some opportunities there. On the other hand, like because of the mobility and speed of Justin Fields, that's going to open up some lanes for Breece Hall.
Very true.
And again, if he's fully healthy, like all he needs is a crease and he's gone. And so, it remains to be seen. I currently have Breece at number 11. I'll be honest with you. I made the ranks after he's going to lower a little bit, my next rank, because that was telling.
Okay.
At
the owners' meetings, we also heard from Vikings head coach, friend of the show, my best friend, coach of the year, Kevin O'Connell, talking about bringing in Jordan Mason.
I think the big thing we learned about Aaron Jones last year is he can be an every down back. He can be, he was a featured part of our offense. But what we wanted to make sure that we were doing is we were using him in a way that allowed him to be his most impactful self when he has historically had that 1A, 1B backfield structure. He could be a total game changer every time he touches the ball. So it was always about bringing Aaron back. Huge leadership role on our team. Really assumed that from day one. But what are we going to pair him with? I think Jordan's going to bring something to the table, in those short yardage situations, those goal line situations, goal to go, where we've really left a lot to be desired as a football team.
So Aaron Jones is never getting a touchdown again. Is that what I just learned?
Not by the goal line.
No.
You're gonna have to make one of them
It's going to have to be a 10. Yeah,
Jones.
exactly. It's going to have to be from the 10-yard
What's
out.
the level of concern, 0 to 10, on Aaron Jones based on Jordan Mason coming in?
You know what? I'm going to say 3 because, I don't think you ever draft Aaron Jones saying, well, this is a guy that's getting 25 touches a game, right? And last year, what unlocked Aaron Jones, you heard Kevin O'Connell, head coach, coach of the year, friend of the podcast, Kevin O'Connell say, he proved he could be an every down back last year. They used him in the passing game. To me, Aaron Jones is like a top 20-ish running back. But to me, that's more about, hey, Jordan Mason is going to have flex appeal than it is about concern about Aaron Jones, because Aaron Jones was never going to be a top 10 guy.
Right.
He's just not built that way. And so, you just feel a little bit better about Jordan Mason than you did about Cam Akers or whatever. But, last year he had 300 touches. He had over 300 touches last year, and I don't think, so if he gets 280 this year, 275, Aaron Jones will still be fantasy productive as an RB2. Jordan Mason, a very viable flex.
Okay,
That's my take.
Good take. We're going to hit our first break. When we come back, Connor's latest mock.
Ooh.
The free NBC Sports Now channel is your home for NFL Draft Month, with more than 100 hours of draft programming throughout April. Daily draft coverage includes PFT Live, The Dan Patrick Show, Chris Sims Unbuttoned, and Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Plus, tune in for NFL Draft Ranking specials with Connor Rogers and updated mock drafts, premiering every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. For more information, go to NBCSports.com/now and jump into Connor's mock draft. You can read the full thing always at NBCSports.com/NFL/draft. Let's start.
Is Connor getting his own show? I feel like that's what and you just sort of glazed over that.
It's a special.
It's a special.
Yeah.
But if you don't screw it up, there's a chance where there could be more of it.
Maybe. The problem is the draft's in a couple weeks. So after that, nobody will care anymore.
You'll go back to
We can make people care year round.
That's
Definitely.
true.
Exactly. You know what you should do? Lawrence, let's have Connor as a guest on Worse Lands,
Promote
which
it.
is and promote
Yes.
this
idea.
and
First
some of your
episode off to a good start.
yeah
There we
many
go.
of your,
Thanks,
many of
fellas.
your other podcasts that you do.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if he was on Worse Lands, he'd probably tell you that Cam Ward is going number 1 to the Tennessee Titans, and that's where we start. You also got Luther Burden III going 35th to the Titans, kind of so expecting a remade offense.
Yeah, and they need another wide receiver in this offense after they take Cam Ward at number 1, which everybody expects at this point. Almost feels like a lock. And you look at Luther Burden, and if this was 2 years ago, he'd probably be a top, he'd definitely be a first rounder, maybe even top 25 pick coming off an insane season for Mizzou. The production fell off this year. The usage was kind of bizarre. There's been some questions around him, but it's still a really, really good prospect that would probably get to play the slot right away in Tennessee's offense. So these would be the viable names in the Titans' offense from a fantasy perspective right out of the gate. And the offensive line looks a lot better this year.
Yeah, for sure, by the way. And then you look around and okay, you've got Calvin Ridley there and Treylon Burks. I know you keep hearing,
again, I think.
right? I mean, just,
Might be over.
You just sort of you want to say, and I don't mean any disrespect to the player, but you want to say to Tennessee, this is stop trying to make fetch happen. Stop trying to make Treylon Burks happen. It's a clueless reference for those
Okay, well done.
Mean Girls.
No, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all. All right.
Sorry.
Let's go to the Patriots quickly. So we
You
run
got
away
that though,
from the
Lawrence,
fetch
right?
reference. Lawrence didn't get it. No, he didn't get it whatsoever.
I said sure.
50 to 1 to him.
I got your back, Matthew.
Thank you.
Okay, Will
Anyway,
Campbell.
whatever.
Will Campbell.
People
save us.
love Luther Burden. I'll tell you that much.
All right, people love Will Campbell as well.
Do they?
He's looking like
Yeah.
the first tackle off the board, going forward to the Patriots in Connor's mock, followed by Emeka Egbuka at 38. Cam Scatterbo and going O-line as well, pick 77.
Yeah, I'll see Pillow. Yeah, this is just all about Drake May, this draft.
Yep.
If you want to be higher on Drake May, if this draft happened, you'd feel so much better after the NFL draft about Drake May to get him not only a guy that will play left tackle potentially. We'll see with Will Campbell. But Ozzie Trapillo, who could start at right tackle, and Morgan Moses is there now too. Scatabo, one of the best pass-protecting running backs in this draft. Emeka Egbuka, very smart wide receiver that can play inside and outside. Just raises the floor so much higher for Drake May.
One of the worst offensive lines in football last year. It was just, I mean,
no
May
weapons.
was running for his life, and so, you know, it's weird that I don't want to say it's weird, but like, are you surprised as you sort of did this draft, like adding to the wide receiver room? Because again, like, you know, they have Diggs, and they have like
this was written before Diggs signed.
Okay, I was going to say, but they have
Kayshon
Boutte, they have Pop Douglas, they have, you know, I mean, I just feel like every year there's 2 young wide receivers, and at some point, like, do the Patriots say, like, let's try to develop the guys we have as a
Polk. They used the top 35 pick on last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Baker.
Yeah, right.
They
Fourth
are
rounder.
deep with young wide
Yeah, they need
receivers.
them to play better. So
Right.
there's a world where maybe now, especially writing this before Diggs signed, that second-round pick could be allocated towards a better running back, a tight end, a pass rusher. I don't think they'll go 4 offensive players in a row now that they got Diggs in the field.
In this mock draft where Will Campbell goes 4th, and I actually would love that pick there, is Travis Hunter still available? And
Yeah, and this one he went 5th, but if I was updating this today, this is about 3 weeks later now, I think the draft will go Cam Ward, some combo of Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. I don't think he's going to be there for them anymore.
Yeah.
Patriots win total is hovering around 8. Which is
Seems
a pretty
high.
big improvement off
than
of
the
last
Jets.
year.
That's the Vrabel effect, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they
me the
spent
under.
a lot of money in the offseason, and they're going to add to fortify the offense, I guess. But yeah, I think that division is a little bit underrated now. I think the Dolphins are going to be much better than they
Because
were
of health.
last year. Just 'cause of health.
Bills are
Bills
great.
the Bills, and the Jets will
And
be.
the Jets will be better under Glenn. Yeah,
their win total is 5.5
Right.
for the Jets.
I would take the over on
the
5.5, and I would
think
take
they-
the under on 8 for the Patriots.
Glenn can get them to six or 7 wins for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, another team that is trending up, the Chicago Bears, who looking like huge improvers and should be in the mix, at least competing for, if not the top of the NFC North, and certainly for second, I would think. And Connor, fun one here. You've got Ashton Jeanty going at number 10 behind that improved offensive line, which might be the most improved unit in football. Josh Simmons as well to further fortify that line at 39. And then you have them going defense for 41 and 72.
I mean, this is the one that kind of rocks the fantasy world because Jeanty is just going to be such a commodity. And then he goes to a place where he's the guy in an offense that we think under Ben Johnson should be much better. So this is the one that would move the needle maybe the most if Jeanty went there to the Bears. You could see a huge, huge rookie season on deck. And I think, honestly, this pick is very much in play.
I think if Jeanty is on the Bears, suddenly Jeanty's on the short list for ride or die this year, and possibly a first-round overall pick in fantasy drafts. Like I think he'd probably go inside the top 12 would be my guess. The hype on Jeanty would be out of control. Certainly top 20. Depends on sort of how it all feels.
Wonder what running backs we would have ahead of him at that point. Saquon is the chalk.
Bijan, right?
Derrick
You'd have
Henry.
Jameer.
I don't know.
Jameer, I'm going Jameer.
Jameer, I'd go Jameer.
yeah,
Derrick
yeah.
Henry,
Not
I don't know.
Derrick Henry.
Derrick
I don't know about
Henry.
Henry.
That's the line.
Derrick Henry, I still
Achane.
will go Derrick Henry because of touchdowns.
I would take Jeanty over Achane.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
So now
I'll
you're at running back
I
4.
would do that. Just remember,
Yeah,
folks,
you're running
look,
back 4.
If Ashton Jeanty does end up on the Bears,
You
heard
broke
it
that
here
news.
First. You heard it on Fantasy Football Hour first. He said he wanted to play for the Bears. He said he wanted to go in the top 10, want to go to a team with a good O-line. What the Bears do? Go get 3 and 2.
Exactly.
Rebuild the damn thing.
I got to give credit to my guy, Lawrence Jackson, because he got that answer out of Ashton Jeanty, and then it got aggregated all over the place with no credit to my guy,
Really,
Lawrence
man.
Jackson.
Come on now.
It just got complete, effing aggregators. Yeah, exactly. They're
Don't
like
give him any credit.
they're like the backup producer Pete of the internet. You know what I mean? You just heard me. It's just like it's awful.
Doesn't
Just,
deserve that.
Yeah.
That fantasy
That's
basketball
about as
matchup
insulted
couldn't
as Pete
be.
could be in one thing.
I was 15-3 in the regular season. I
Yeah,
deserve
it's
to win this
tough.
league, and now I'm going to
You
lose.
did steamroll
I
throughout the year.
steamrolled 15-3. I was first place regular season, and now I'm going to lose. And not only am I going to lose, I'm going to lose to backup producer Pete.
And you'll never hear
who
the end of it.
Who I assure you, America, is the most annoying person in our league. after perhaps me. And so, yeah.
What a great championship.
It is.
Nobody was interested in rooting for anyone.
It is just desserts. It is like it literally is the Super Bowl.
Y'all
like,
two the only one talking about it in the chat.
Exactly.
No one answers the group chat.
No one wanted Chiefs Eagles. Everyone wanted like Bills Commanders.
Yeah.
No one wanted Pete Matthew in the NBA Finals.
No.
Yeah,
Everybody
I
wanted
promise
producer
you.
Damian Aerotine International.
Exactly.
But
two
it
fan
happened.
favorites. But now it's me and backup producer Pete.
Yeah. You got a 61-point triple-double and you're still going to get crushed.
I know. It's awful.
The sad
it's
thing
very upsetting.
about that.
I know.
Also a sad thing.
If you listen closely, you can hear Pete's kids, Daddy, we need dinner. No, I'm doing more Photoshops for Barry. It's just, you can hear it if you listen
can't even
closely.
defend himself here on the show.
Scouring the waiver wires.
It's fine. It
Well,
doesn't
I'm a
matter.
chair up here.
Listen, I'll say this about Pete. He's a Giants fan, so it's nice that he at least has something. So he'll have one happy memory of sports over this calendar year.
Yeah, well, another entity that is focusing more on Photoshop than winning, it seems, is the Dallas Cowboys, Connor, who... It's not that long ago. The Dallas Cowboys were like a 2-seed and the second favorite to make the Super Bowl.
How quickly
got
things change.
Absolutely trucked by the Packers at Jerry World. And now you have them at 12, fortifying the offensive line. But the real fun one is at running back with Quinshon Judkins.
Right, he's the more interesting combo than Jeanty. We're all going to probably take Jeanty in the first round. We would wonder here, Lawrence, how high do you draft Quinshon Judkins if he goes to a backfield where he's the guy the second he walks into the star?
Well, if anything, if you learned anything last year from Bucky Irvin and the Bucs and how that unfolded, this could be a very similar situation. And I expect Quinshon Judkins to get drafted a little bit higher than Bucky Irvin did. Bucky Irvin was a 4th-round pick, I believe, kind of had to earn his way. I think going in there for Quinshon, if he were to get in the backfield next to Javonte Williams, you kind of walk into that saying, oh, they're even already. Like Bucky Irvin had to prove that he was better. I don't think that's the case here because the running back room for the Cowboys is really thin right now.
People think Judkins could be special, right? I mean, and especially in the right situation here, which if he goes to Dallas certainly would be. And I will say so much is put, especially in fantasy, so much is put into draft capital. You hear a lot of fantasy analysts talk about draft capital, and I will say that I think this year, because running back is so deep, I think a lot of NFL teams will be like, I'll take a guy on day 3 because it is so deep. And so a day 3 running back this year is not going to be like a typical day 3 running back other years.
I completely agree, Matthew. It's the fact that teams just know they could play the value in this draft. The running back, I mean, God, running back 19, running back 20 off the board will be legitimate NFL players. That's how deep this group is.
Yep. Took a cheap shot at them before, but the Cowboys are 35-1 to win the NFC. It's still Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, young O-line that should get better. Defense can't be worse than
They have their
it was
picks.
last year. They got their picks fortified.
Listen,
Cowboys, I think there's some upside in the team.
I will tell you that 35-1 is not nearly as bad a bet as Giants 80-1, which you put a lot of money on.
Yes.
So
It was fun for 2 weeks.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't fun at all. Not fun for a single second. Didn't get 2 weeks out of it.
It's not like they started out like the Saints or anything.
You really tried to sell that one.
I'm just saying, it looked like it wouldn't be an amazing
which
division.
one?
I'll blame Pete about 98% on that.
Listen, Dexter Lawrence looked really good. Nothing else
Still
looked
does.
good about that.
Yeah,
Still
yeah,
does.
still a good player.
Still does.
Okay, let's get to a better team than the New York Giants. That's the Denver Broncos, who you have taking Michael Golden at 20 to add to that wide receiving core with Cortland Sutton. TreVeyon Henderson, running back as well for a team that desperately needed running back production last year. What's the thought process here, Connor?
Man, Henderson's just so explosive. That's the thought here, is that you get a running back that you can kind of design these touches to. You could even kick him outside and match up with cornerbacks and linebackers. Just the speed element. I would see rookie year Jahmyr Gibbs for TreVeyon Henderson in this offense.
Yeah, look, and to be honest, Connor, where you have Golden and TreVeyon Henderson, I wouldn't be shocked if these two picks was flip-flop. And if the Broncos do get it back like Henderson, who's so similar to Jaleel McLaughlin, you can expect Henderson to, like, really get to that 15 to 20 touch mark because they're such similar running backs.
I've seen some people say that they have Henderson as their number 2 running back. Now, we don't,
shocked,
but you know, I mean, I think a lot of people love Hampton. They love Judkins as well, but Henderson's right there. And so, especially in the right situation, and Denver would be a great situation for Henderson, wouldn't be surprising for him to be the number 2 running back in fantasy among rookies this year.
Yep. One of the most underrated O-lines in football as well in Denver. It's quietly become a real strength of the team.
Yeah, well coached. They'll invest in skill positions in this draft. Yeah. So when you look at it like that, Denver's going to be really interesting because that helps Bo Nix. It helps the offense as a whole. And whoever their running back is going to be battling with Audric Estime. So there's good chance there that they'll be all right.
But by the way, Matthew Golden, I think this would be a great landing spot for him as well, right?
Yeah, good route runner, great hands, like just a reliable presence in that offense.
And just feels like just throughout the pre-draft process and the combine, his stock continues to rise.
Massively. Yep. Big college football playoff for Matthew Golden.
Yep. All right. Well, a reminder, you can check out the full mock draft at NBCSports.com/NFL/draft. We're going to hit our last break. When we come back, we're going to hit on some of our favorite draft markets at DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 sportsbook for live betting, and new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Just download the app and use the promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook.
The crown is yours!
It's yours.
Let's take a look at some NFL draft position first round totals. Markets, cornerbacks set at 4.5, juice to the under. O-linemen 6.5. Quarterbacks, which we're going to talk about, set at 2.5, -350 the over. Running backs over 2.5 is +240. And then wide receivers over 2.5 is -275. Lawrence, what's your favorite bet on the board here?
I'm going to go over 2.5 running backs at +240. We just talked about TreVeyon Henderson. I think he sneaks his way into the first round. The Raiders, Bears, Cowboys, Broncos can all draft Ashton, Jeanty, and Amari and Hampton. Then you got teams who could surprise you, like the Commanders and Chiefs. So I like TreVeyon Henderson to be the third running back taken in the first round.
I'll look for some value here, too, and go under 2.5 quarterbacks in the first round at +265. Listen, I know there's a lot of hype around Jackson Dart right now. I'm just not buying it. I understand he's going to go in the top 50, probably the top 40. I think it's more of a coin flip that somebody comes back into day one to take him. It looks like it'll Cam Ward #1. Shedur's projections are all over the place. I still think he goes in the first round. I'm just not sold Dart is a lock to go in the first round, and these odds are telling you that he kind of is. This happens every single year. Remember Will Levis a couple years ago? This happens a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that. I completely agree with Connor here. Jackson Dart does not strike me as a franchise quarterback yet. He's got potential. He's got to sit, and to trade into the first round when there's so much depth at other positions for a guy that you know you're going to have to sit for a project. I'm going to go with Connor here. I will say, though, the odds of Pete being completely annoying for the next year, -550.
It's off the board.
And it's off the board. DraftKings took it off the board because Pete's memeing me to death, and it's annoying as hell because I got nothing to say other than, damn it, he's going to win.
Okay, very good. Betting the draft is information games. We're going to follow in Connor's information there. I'll take the under 2.5 as well.
That music means it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Lawrence, Connor, Jay, and stupid backup producer Pete, I'm merely Matthew. We'll see you next week. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.